This video will describe strategies that have been provided in the curriculum guide and materials called out in the lessons, which are intended to be used in print or digital format. All of the adapted materials are called out in the lessons in the curriculum guide. The materials intended to be used in print format that will be used by most students are found in the bin. Adapted materials that can be printed or that are intended to be used in digital format are accessed through a code digitally. The adapted materials have been designed to overcome barriers in the robot application materials as they come out of the box. Barriers that relate to communication, fine motor or gross motor ability, visual and visual perceptual abilities, literacy level, or cognitive challenges. You may be supporting students who are unable to speak and who rely on augmentative communication for expressive communication. Or you may have students in your class who experience challenges with language and who benefit from visual materials to help with receptive communication. We have created communication displays using the core vocabulary from Project Core at the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies and have added fringe vocabulary to support communication required for each robot kit. Displays have been provided in a number of different formats to accommodate different levels of fine motor ability and to accommodate eye gaze. We have created some specific displays for a few of the lessons, and we encourage teachers to have available reference sheets and other lesson materials for reference when students reflect and share so that they can use the actual materials to contribute to the discussion. Cubeto has smooth and slippery command blocks that need to be inserted into the control panel in a specific orientation. The command blocks have magnets, so we share the design of handles with different grasps that can be 3D printed to enable students to pick up the command blocks that they would not be able to manipulate. While it's difficult to actually orient a block exactly to place it into the control panel, the thinking that is demonstrated by choosing the correct block and then moving it toward the space on the control panel is the important part of the process. The same handles can be used for some of the laminated materials in different kits by using magnetic tape and a cookie sheet. For students who have difficulty with control of a pen or marker and who have difficulty placing materials on a background without displacing other items, we've created items that can be cut out and velcroed to the background. We've laminated materials that will be handled a lot by students who may have difficulty regulating the strength of their grasp. And we've created activities in Clicker 7 and 8 to support students who cannot manipulate concrete materials. They can use a touch screen with targets much larger than the Blockly app. We're also developing a fully accessible software interface, which you can have a peek at in the 4th video clip. This will allow students to use the accessible software interface for Dash and Bluebot. Here's a look at how the Clicker activities support students who need to use alternate access and can't manage the laminated materials. So here, if a student needs to use a mouse or alternate pointing device, they simply click on the space and then on their choice.
Play catch.
Students who need to use eye gaze can set those parameters, and then you'll see the red dot using eye gaze to make a choice.
Say we.
Students who need to use switch scanning, you simply set that in Clicker, and then students move the highlight with to switch scanning to the item they want, in this case the erase, and make their choice with the switch.
Erase.
By scaffolding our lessons to differentiate for students with a range of cognitive levels, we've also accommodated students who have visual perceptual issues by virtue of breaking down concepts and building on one part at a time. For example, students deal with the sense, think, and act cubelets separately before they need to focus on all of them at once. In our foundation lesson on categorization, students only deal with 3 categories rather than all of the Blockly categories, and they do so on a large screen as a full class. We do not assume that students are able to read or write, and we provide different levels of materials. Blockly blocks in a category are all visually similar except for the text name. So we've provided symbol Blockly blocks for planning, and students can use these or the reference booklet when using the app. Similarly, we've created leveled materials for Qubelets with level 1 materials supported by symbols. And our clicker activities have a right-click sound, which students can use to hear an auditory preview prior to choosing an item on screen when they can't read the text in that item. Students who can use markers to write parameter choices on the Blockly blocks during planning, either using developmental or more conventional spelling, are able to do so. Or students can use the option items. Note that symbols can be ranked from concrete to very abstract, and so they need to be taught the more abstract they are. Some of our instructions and tip sheets have keywords symbolized. This doesn't mean that students will be able to read them without talking about them and having them modeled first, but the symbols will help them to remember the key concepts when they need to use them for planning and application activities. While the leveled lessons support different literacy levels, they also support different cognitive levels by virtue of the fact that level 1 materials provide choices from which students can choose, while level 2 materials require that students depend on the posters and materials in the classroom, as well as their memories in order to complete activities. As described in the video on our UDL approach, lessons are scaffolded and start with an anchor activity to connect to previous knowledge or to build background knowledge. For example, in the Qubelets kit, Lesson 4, which introduces the sense Qubelets, builds on students' background knowledge about the 5 senses, sending younger students on a sensory scavenger hunt and guiding older students through creating a mind map about the 5 senses. Throughout the lessons, we represent new concepts and language visually while providing explanation. Then students get physically involved in planning and application activities. Because each student or pair do the planning and application with their own materials, we're able to monitor their thought processes and provide necessary guidance to ensure we're building knowledge rather than just having them explore and observe without integrating the new concepts. During the reflect and share part of the lesson, the opportunity to articulate observations and conclusions and hear from peers helps our students to commit new learning to memory. We spoke about the importance of the coding to learn skills that can generalize to activities of daily living. The extend and connect to real life part of the lesson provides ideas for this important piece. This does not usually happen without our support to make those connections. For example, students learn about sequences in their work with Cubeto and Dash and Dot. In the Extend and Connect, we provide ideas for supporting students in connecting the importance of order with the robot to sequencing in curricular areas such as procedural writing, or a daily life activity such as giving directions to an educational assistant with an activity such as helping to open a school locker. Sometimes the strategies are called out in the lesson, and sometimes a bit more differentiation is required for a specific classroom profile. The Ensuring Participation document in the curriculum guide provides further ideas for a range of challenges such as explaining, watching and listening, or sorting. And finally, in the next slide, we'll sum up this video by showing you how all of the adapted resources fit into a classroom environment during coding instruction.
So how do all of these materials work? This is what your classroom might look like. During instruction, the teacher will need the curriculum guide to provide them with all the explicit instructions and scripting that is needed to confidently implement coding activities in the classroom. The whole class digital slide deck will both guide instruction and support concept development. Posters are intended to be hung up as they are addressed so that students can be directed to reference them as required. Vocabulary cards are also meant to be posted and remain on display for reference. We continue to add to it as we explicitly teach new vocabulary. So today, we've added the event vocabulary card because it's the new term that we've learned in this lesson. During practice and apply activities, students are provided with Blockly blocks to support thoughtful planning. While some students will be able to use the Blockly blocks to plan and to navigate the Blockly app to execute their plan on their tablets or Chromebooks, clicker activities are provided for students who require alternate access, so they too have access to all the Blockly blocks they need. AAC materials support communication and collaboration for students who have communication challenges, and tip sheets can be posted or provided to students to support independence and self-regulation when they're working on important collaboration skills.